We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you. We'll begin with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And do we have we have the minutes as published. They're in the packet, pages 1 to 4. Do I have any additions, corrections, discussion? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
That's the minutes of August 5th, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? We have public comment on our agenda items. Do we have anybody here to speak on the public? No public comment on agenda items, and we had nobody sign up. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. We'll close that portion of it. Now we'll start with introductions. I'm Kevin Brightsky, the chairman of this committee.
Tom Vanderwood with NERC.
David?
David Wright, jury transfer sergeant.
Mark Riddell, Town of Chesterton.
Dean Button,
Tom Schmidt, Tom Sherwood. Ryan Lissy, directly Indiana.
Max Raylander, Valparaiso.
Harry Tanis, Fire Town Council.
George Topple, Union Township of Fort County.
Meredith?
Meredith Stillwell, NERC. Patty Wilder, NERC.
Eric Wolverton, American Structure Point.
Shay Tamara, Butler, Fairman, and Cypress.
Doug Ross, Coast Lagoon.
Matt Schrader, SEH.
Chris Lee,
Scott Weber, NERC staff.
Deshaun Potter, NERC staff.
Grace Gunder, NERC staff.
Danielle Martins, University.
Charles Bradsky, NERC staff.
Jim Hutchin, East Chicago, City Engineer. Scott Pruitt, District Engineer.
Mitch Barlow, NERC staff.
Melody Panos and that. Ron Mayer and that.
That covers everybody. Thank you. That helps us with the roll. Planning 3.1 Bi-State Regional Climate Plan Transportation Sector Update. That's Kathy Luther. Wake up, Kathy.
I know I was first. Okay.
Hasn't recovered from the drive from Atlanta.
Yes. Okay. So many of you participated or aware that we were working on climate planning here at NERC in 2020, 2019, 2020. So I wanted to give an update on where that is, which is actually kind of in this detour to the Greater Chicago Area Planning Action Planning. So I did want to give you guys an update specifically through the lens of the Transportation Working Group for that effort, which includes stakeholders from Illinois, Indiana. I don't know if anybody from Wisconsin is on there. There. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what that larger climate planning effort looks like, and a little bit of comparison to our climate planning effort, and then some modeling results and assumptions from the transportation sector, some of the strategies, barriers, and lead actors we're looking at, and next steps. So you may recall climate planning at NERC, we had a multi-stakeholder working group, and we were looking at long-term action, engagement, and support for implementing local climate plans. We completed a regional greenhouse gas inventory with a 2017 baseline in 2021. We were well on our way through a regional climate action plan framework, and then plan to move from that to assisting local climate action plans and doing a climate resilience plan. But then we took a time out to switch to the NWI 2050, and most of the climate planning work was mutated into Chapter 3. Mutated is a bad word. Grew into Chapter 3. And then while we were doing that, we took another detour into this other climate planning because the EPA introduced climate pollution reduction grants program. And they had allocated funds to metropolitan statistical areas, which many of you are aware from this committee that Lake and Porter counties are in the Chicago metropolitan statistical area. The carrot for the climate pollution reduction grant planning grants was that if you had a priority climate action plan developed through a climate pollution reduction planning grant, then you were eligible for a climate pollution reduction implementation grant. So, and the state was doing a climate pollution reduction planning grant, but so was CMAP. And thinking that CMAP was in our metropolitan statistical area, that we work with them regularly and we could maybe have more influence at that level. We've been partnering and working with them on that through the entire thing. In the meantime, nobody got any implementation grants in our state, so maybe that we did not win the carrot, but we go on. So the Priority Climate Action Plan was developed by the Metropolitan Mayor Caucus of Chicago, and you can find it on their website or on the Chicago Metropolitan Planning website, and I think we have links on our website as well. This presentation will mostly be about the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, and then the next step is a status report on implementation that we're supposed to give to EPA by 2027. Which I just went through the whole timeline. We've established guiding principles, completed a inventory. The baseline we're using for this project is 2020. We set reduction targets, identified strategies, and so right now we're kind of in the process of modeling the strategies, and we took those to the working groups for feedback, and starting to analyze how the community impacts of those strategies. And this is due to EPA by December 1st. So just for a review the 2020 greenhouse gas inventory emissions for the entire greater Chicago area is 152 million metric tons per year for 2020. By comparison, our total for 2017 was 54.5. That ends up like 33% versus 35% of the greater region. So that's actually not bad for 2 different years and slightly different methodologies. So I don't know, I feel like that's sort of a validation of all of our efforts. Lake County is a significant percentage of this 13 county pie. Cook County is 36% and we're 23%. So that's the context. And we've kind of condensed some of the source sectors into three main areas. Industry, which represents 36% of the greenhouse gas emissions for that 13 county area. Buildings, which in our previous pie chart, we had a commercial energy wedge and a residential energy wedge, which really was electricity used by residential buildings or commercial buildings and heating for the same. So in this case, we've kind of condensed those categories. So 35% of the emissions for the whole greater area are in that buildings category, building envelope, heating, cooling, use of electricity. And then 26% across the entire region is from the transportation source. So as compared to our chart of our emission for our 3 counties, we had 11% of the emissions would be from that residential and commercial buildings, energy use, 9% for mobile sources, and 80% for industry. So what we've done by joining with Chicago is sort of building our industry across there, but they have some too. Similar to theirs, all the other categories, agriculture, water, wastewater treatment, and solid waste management are less than 3%, or a very small percentage. And we're getting about 2% sequestration per year through the forest preserve districts and the national parks and all the trees that we have in our region. In our planning, we had adopted a 63% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050. For the greater area, we're going for a gross 80 to 85% reduction by 2050. We did learn in this planning process that EPA is requiring the reductions from the 2005 levels, which before we were just kind of going on our own. We didn't have that as baseline. So the good news is we already do have some reductions since 2005 just from technology. And this target is for all the categories together and aligns with other targets that CMAP and the City of Chicago and the Mayor's Caucus have. So that will be something for us to discuss when we pivot back to our plan, because the advantage we're having right now is with the grant to do this planning, we're getting a lot of consultant support. When our version we were doing with staff and some graduate students from IU, which is nothing against graduate students, they're very smart, but I think this one will be a little more robust and we can borrow some of the information back into our plan and improve that effort. So looking at, they've now back modeled the emissions from 2005. We can show that as a region, the greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced by 20% in that time. 39 million metric tons have been reduced. But we still need 65% more to get to the 80-85% target by 2050, which means reducing 125 more million metric tons per year.
Do you know the 20% reduction between 2005 and 2020? Like, what was the primary cause?
State line power generation?
No, I think a lot of it is just improvement in that. I gotta see the notes page. Maybe it's in a different slide.
I was gonna say, just the fact that we weren't driving to work during 20 due to COVID.
No, because
that was like a 15-year span.
yeah, that's it. And the 2020 is since the vehicle emissions are all kind of modeled ahead of time, they're not really using EPA's emission data is based on modeling, not so much on the actual measured. So the traffic. I'm trying to see where they have the reason.
If you don't have it offhand, that's okay.
I think it might come up later. Anyway. I feel like it was just like overall improvements in the grid and the electric generation being more efficient. Oh, this is how I wanted it. So I'm just going to reorganize these slides, but specifically for the transportation sector, the decarbonization strategies focus around 6 different activities, which probably sound very familiar: electrify vehicles, increase fuel efficiency with lower carbon fuels, manage travel demand, increase transportation efficiency, increase transit ridership, and increase active transportation. Those are pretty much been actions we've been promoting for a long time for a lot of reasons. Within those 6 categories, the measures we're going to look at is the increased sale share for electric vehicles, electrification of off-road vehicles, electrification of locomotives, and marine vessels offshoring. Direct Canada has worked a lot with our port on offshore power. Increasing fuel efficiency, shifts to renewable or synthetic fuels, and reducing VMT. So a note that we're all sensitive, many of us in this engaged in this conversation, that putting all these cars is a huge stress on the electric system and the grid, as well as at the same time we're adding data centers and AI. And I was just in Atlanta, and there's a pilot project. You can get a self-driving Uber, and I myself was scared by this, but I tried to get one, I didn't get one. And that's gonna need more AI, right? That's a lot of AI. So they formed CMAP is working on a longer term conversation with Argonne National Labs, Oak Ridge National Labs, ComEd, to look at the long-term electricity demand needs and technology and things to do with that. So that's gonna be an ongoing conversation. So this is sort of the different projections, modeling projections. So we're modeling we modeled kind of three scenarios that I'm gonna carry through. One is current policy. The current policy scenario is usually called business as usual, and it does incorporate existing state and federal policies that are in place. Now, in this presentation that you're gonna see, we were not including changes from this administration to things like the CAFE standards and other things. That with the budget, it was like gonna be really expensive, but the transportation working group has called foul. So they're going back to the drawing board a little bit and modeling again without the CAFE standard increases and some of the other incentives that are probably going away. But the way we tried to capture that initially was to make a distinction between federal policy implementation actions and state and local policy implementation actions, so that you can see the difference without the federal, how much does the state and local get you, which you'll see as we go forward. But they are going to refine the business as usual model as well to take out some of the federal policies that are going away, at least for now. So with the current policy, with the projected CAFE standards that are now not being projected anymore, you would get a 36% reduction in, this is the economy-wide slide, then the transportation slides are. Economy-wide, we'd see a 36% reduction. If we just implement the state and local portions of this plan, you might see a 61% reduction. And if we had both the state and local and the federal and new things we are recommending here, we would get to an 85% reduction. Okay. And the transportation emissions reduced by 29% during that same period. The overall emissions was a 20%, so the transportation emissions were reduced by 29% during 2020 to 20. It's too many numbers. 2005 to 2020. And those were largely driven by the fuel economy standards and some growth in electric vehicles. And then the current policy scenario, as I mentioned, it does reflect the federal and state policies in place at the time of the modeling, which was last year, and they're rerunning that now with new federal policies, which is what we're calling here speculative policy shifts are now not speculative, but in fact. But it doesn't capture the future of some of the programs that are in place in Illinois and that locals could embrace. So the state and local portion only builds on successful programs and policies in the region or other U.S. jurisdictions that they're not necessarily things that are in place here, but they could be put in place here if we implement them similar to other states. The transportation sector, with the current policy, which included all the CAFE standard improvements, we would get a 46% reduction. With the state and local policies, we get a 78%, and if we fully implement everything that we're throwing on the spaghetti board here, we could get to 95%. So some of the scenarios in the business as usual. This is the current policy scenario. Illinois has a Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, and they have a plan to get 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2030. So that's what the CJA is in Illinois. this also included the fuel economy standards, which is the part we're gonna remodel, and, some of the Inflation Reduction Act incentives are also, in there. So here's some of the assumptions in the transportation section, that the NREL standard scenarios will influence the adoption of renewable electricity generation outside of Illinois. There are projections that EV sales will increase, the manufacturing of EV will increase because even though the federal requirements may go away, California Air Board still requires it, and many of the manufacturers build their fleet so they can sell their cars in California. And that target is 100% of new light duty vehicles are EV or plug-in by 2035. And that there will also in California, there's a requirement to manufacture a certain percentage of the EV cells into the light and medium duty truck and even heavy duty truck. So that's in the 78% reduction, wait for the slide, in that blue line. So those are current policies that our states could adopt. And probably in Illinois, probably will. CTA has a official plan to go to 100% electric. And there's an Illinois law that the school bus fleet has to be all electric. The city of Chicago is planning to electrify their entire vehicle fleet. There's a Washington low carbon fuel standard. So these are all state and local plant implementation policies that could occur regardless of federal action. And I wasn't sure, like David, I know you guys have a bus electrification plan, but I don't know how much confidence in, like, I think their plans are city ordinance, like the city of Chicago's plan, so.
Yeah, ours isn't supported by anything at the local level in terms of ordinances. It's just our vehicle replacement plan and our, the pricing, as Charles can probably attest to, for all of our vehicles, assume electric or hybrid at this point.
So for this case, for the state and local policy, the model that what's in place would include Chicago's plan, because that's a city ordinance, but maybe the other things might be in potential possibilities. This plan requires a lot more electric of lawn and landscaping equipment and off-road vehicles. The states can require the shore power electrification, this plan in the state and local policy avoids a 15% increase in VMT per capita. So of interest here is that in CMAP region, they're modeling VMT increases of 1% by 2035 and 2% by 2050. And so if they can do their 15%, they're looking at making a 12% reduction in VMT per capita rather than a 1% or 2% increase. NERC models a 20% increase in VMT, so which is a 3% increase in VMT per capita. So that's one area where there's a significant difference in Illinois projections and ours. But I think there's a lot of reasons why. They have a lot more transit, they have a lot more dense population. So the light duty vehicle EV adoption rates are one of the strategies, and the medium and heavy duty vehicle adoption rate made some assumptions about the Advanced Clean Truck Program, Advanced Clean Cars Program, and the ZEP transition bus phase out, policies through 2028, but please, I think. Oh, the green would be in our plan. This would all have to be adopted to get to the green total plan implementation target. We'd have to adopt all this stuff. The shore plan electrification of 100%, and aviation fuel. So, looking at the transportation sector, this kind of divides it up into the different vehicle or source categories. So in 2020, our baseline is 39 million metric tons from the transportation sector. And then, this is a weird way to graph this, but I'm going to attempt to walk you through it. Okay, so 2020 is 39 is our baseline. In 2035, with the current business as usual, we would get a 15% reduction overall. Most of that reduction is happening in the passenger car and passenger truck fleet from the EV and the car and the CAFE standards getting tighter. With state and locals adopting some of those plans that they could adopt, similar to California or Washington, we would get down to a 40% reduction, which is again mostly in the passenger vehicle, but now we have a little more reduction from the freight truck category. You notice kind of aviation is projected to increase. It's higher in 2035 than 2020. But then the full plan we get 43%. That's with everybody implementing every possible 100% of everything that have been adopted anywhere else. And then in 2050, so in 2035 we don't have that much growth, but by 2050 we're going to have the emission reduction from the technology, vehicle changes, all those things offset a little bit by growth. Oh, and these start at 2020 though, they don't go back to 2005, but we still have that baked in, that 20% is still baked in. So, see, I can skip this slide, I already talked about it. Except that in the baseline, 61% of the transportation emissions were from passenger trucks and cars, and 19% were from freight trucks, which is really similar to our inventory. By 2035, the emission reductions would be anticipated from light duty EVs due to the incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act and the Illinois job grant. But freight just stays a lot the same. And then by 2035, the state and local, because there'll be more adoption of cleaner vehicles, we get the 40%. I think the reduction in the off-road, which is this beige colored, is mostly just market incentive. I like my electric lawn equipment a lot better. It's quieter and it's less steam. So I think that's just mostly market driven. And in the full plan, basically this is saying that the federal policy doesn't make that much of a difference, but that's with the CAFE standard changes in. I think when we take the CAFE standard changes out, we'll see that the federal will be allowed, the current policy will be higher, since the state plan won't be as effective. In 2032, so these levels that currently the CAFE standard reductions level off in 2032, that might actually become more leveling off sooner. But and the tax credits will expire, so that the value of the speed and value of the fleet turnover becomes less. So by 2050, though, it's anticipated that 75% of the light duty fleet would be electric vehicles and 19% are plug-in hybrids. So that's where we get a big change there by 2050. And then we've somehow capped VMT to 4% growth. And 53% of the heavy-duty fleet will be electrified. So part of this is for all you to, or some of this is for Ryan and other people to think about what would that take? I mean, is that realistic? What are the barriers to doing that? What are the challenges? What could be done locally if that really is a goal? So, but with implementing all of those things, like 100% EVs, 100% zero emission from diesel to zero emission, we get all these down to 92%. And the residual emissions are largely from the off-road vehicles and landscaping equipment, which are extremely diluted across the landscape. So yeah, probably should have skipped to this. The largest source are passenger cars and trucks. And that was actually true in our case too, which was, I think, more surprising for us, because I think most of the Northwest Indiana stakeholders were expecting the trucks to be a bigger percentage. And they are significant still, and they're a little harder to decarbonize, but it's pretty important that we really boost up the electric vehicle sales in the near future in order to meet the long-term targets and turn over fleets sooner, which is harder if there's less funds. It's harder, especially the government fleets. It's harder to get new school buses and new snow plows and when there's less funding. But most of that could be achieved through state and local action, regardless of federal policy. But some of them, we just can't get rid of those diffuse sources of landscape and off-road vehicles. It's like farm equipment. So this is an example of a measure. The measure is increasing annual sales of electric light-duty vehicles. The most you could ever get is 100%. If we would need to get 100, this makes no sense. This is when 100% by 2035 to get to 88% by 2050. Okay, so anyway, these are just really high targets. I meant to ask them about that. Okay, they're saying you have to hit this target by 2035, this target by 2040 in order to get to what you want to be at 2050. So you need to have 100% of the bus fleet electric by 2040 to be at, probably because of the transit assessment, asset management plans. You can only replace them so fast. You have 100% shore power by 2030. So you may have a lot of questions because I did not explain all of this really terrifically well. So I would be happy to answer questions. And the other thing, I would love to hear some feedback on, I'm not going to do that part. Like what steps would be needed to implement any of these? Would we want to implement any of these as local policies? Is anyone's community really, I haven't seen, even with all the climate planning and sustainability, it's hard to imagine making any of those as requirements. Like 100% electric vehicles, switching the whole fleet over. So what do you think are the barriers? Are the barriers primarily cost? Are the barriers public opposition?
Resistance to change. For our vehicle fleet, we would need a massive infusion or a diversification of local revenue. Your average 35, 40 foot diesel is about 450,000, and your average hybrid probably in the 1.2 at this point
Mhm.
for an all-electric vehicle. Those prices can come back down, those are higher than when we ordered our Ford that are on the street right now. So assuming they come back down, we're talking 800,000-900,000 for an electric at 35 or 40 feet. So when we apply for our funding, again, as Charles and Stephen knows, we assume the hybrid/electric cost. So our stretch goal is to do that. But getting additional funding or an increase in funding from our current local sources is necessary for us to make that. Yeah, but like I said, our orders assume hybrid or electric at this point. We also need to get support in additional charging stations. We're hoping to get some opportunity chargers at the Lake County Government Center. But that would be necessary for us to keep the buses on the street and keep them charged to provide that service.
So cost and kind of political will change.
And infrastructure.
And infrastructure.
And then just to build upon Dean's comment is more along the lines of just having some direction that can be phased in and not changed every 4 years. So having some certainty in what is going to be approved and not approved and how this is going forward. And just to throw electrification down everyone's throats and or hydrogen for that fact is not the best case scenario, but there's different ways that we can lower our footprint by using clean domestic American fuels outside of just electric. So with relations to natural gas, propane, there's definitely a lot of opportunities that we can decarbonize the hard to transition fleets, if you will.
So I mean, I think there's a few references to lower carbon fuels, but maybe that could be strengthened to increase the flexibility of the policies that could be implemented.
And just for reference, I mean, that's $1 billion industry for these LCFS credits, just going to California, Oregon, and Washington. That adopted as the state level to be used here with the local economy would be transformational.
Okay, so those two states have adopted this, and we haven't, but so it's driving the market. So there's some assumptions here that I think that the California rules kind of drive the vehicle manufacturers. Do you think that's accurate?
To an extent, absolutely.
But they could still have a fleet that's all electric, that's so high percentage electric, but sell all those cars in California, and we still have the same. We just have the replica cars. Okay.
But the California regulations are driving the market in research and development that helps OEMs provide and create a market, if you will.
I thought that a very significant difference was that we modeled 20% growth in VMT, and CMAP models significantly less, like 4% or something.
It's because all the Illinois people are moving to Indiana.
But seriously, why is there so low?
Well, I think that is a thing that maybe we could dig into. That could be something we could do here. Is let's look at the source of our 20%. I think it's modeled on the economic growth. I think we just use the economic numbers and then apply them to travel. So, I mean, maybe we can talk to them about what their model does and how ours is different. I do think that, I mean, we do have a lot of population in Cook County, and that's concentrated. And we get to split our transit money with them, so they have more, that's a self-feeding. They have more transit, and so they get more of the funding, so then they get more transit.
I'm just making the comments about the barriers.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking if I have to get an electric car, like I have to compare it to gas. So I have so many gas stations, so I can stop anytime and fill gas. I don't have that number of charging. The other thing, it take you like 5 minutes to fill gas, but like to charge your car, it's gonna take longer. So like maybe we need like a fast charging, you know, like equipment. So it's how to make it easy.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
like,
the infrastructure
just to
piece.
compete- Yeah, to compete with the gas.
Yeah, and that's in this plan, and actually some of that is, has been happening, and some of it maybe had some funding pullbacks, but,
Can I also make a comment about other limitations?
Yeah. No, that's fine, that's what I'm,
I think the longevity of the actual engines is kind of up in the air about how long they'll actually last and how frequently they'll need to be replaced. And they're engines that use different materials that are very expensive, and they're only going to get more expensive. I think that is a question.
the batteries or the,
Yes.
okay. Well, so that's where we are with the transportation working group. They're tweaking the model to include more recent federal policy changes. We have another set of the working group meetings coming out in this month. We're gonna try to have a draft out in mid-October, so that we'll have a final plan. And we are all aware in this planning effort that there is not implementation funding, and it's more of a, if we're serious about this is what we would have to do to get there. We're also acknowledging that not all of the industrial emission can be possibly reduced here, because the whole nation uses the steel that's made here, and so we're looking that some of the offsets would have to happen outside of our region to even get there, and should be more like a national challenge. So I'm also planning to go to the next Economy in Place Committee to talk about the buildings targets and the buildings strategies.
I talk to residents every single day, and not only here, but in other parts of the state. And I'm taking the 30,000 foot look at the whole issue. And I agree with Ryan. Ryan is very smart. He knows what he's doing. And I agree that it's gonna take a transition. We have to figure things out. But when I look at the whole scenario, when we're talking about this, I see Indianapolis sees this as a target, as usual. I hear that all the time from Indianapolis, and we don't like Northwest Indiana, and we've been treated like that for decades. And so they're targeting us. And so what happens? Well, we have these emissions control things that we have to abide by for, like in Porter County. That is ridiculous. The other people that target us, Illinois, they're looking at us and saying, oh, here, look at this. We're going to get these people pulled in on this whole thing. We can't have that. We don't want to be part of that. We want to be separated. We want to be able to alleviate those emissions controls because they don't serve any purpose. And it's hard on our residents. That's who I hear from every single day. I can't afford to get my car fixed. I don't want to have to go in to do this every single year. And it's a burden on us. So we seem to be the target of two different groups that are looking right at us and saying, here we're gonna make some money, we're gonna make some changes. And I think that we can do it, but there certainly is room for improvement. We can do things better as Northwest Indiana. That's what we need to focus on, is doing things better than we are right now. But again, I feel bad for the residents. They're getting hit with utility bills. They're getting hit with this emissions control. They can't get their cars fixed. And I hear it every single day from residents in our town. And not only here, from every other surrounding town as well. So I think it's something we can work on, but we need to do better. And we need to figure out a transition.
I just think if you look at I go back to and I'm not arguing with you so much as just to look at the big picture. About a third of the emissions are from everybody's cars. This is just greenhouse gas, which has nothing to do with the vehicle emission testing.
Right.
You could just make some, similar. that, we all have to own a part of it for this to happen or not happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's because we all didn't own a part of it. So, and our own vehicles is the only one of the few parts. Our own vehicles and our own lawnmowers is one of the few, and our own homes is the part we can actually control. Everything else, although some of you as elected officials can control maybe a little bigger envelope. So,
Wanted to add, if we were to increase our fleet with diesel, but actually increase our service, there's still gonna be a net decrease in transportation sector emissions because you're increasing modal choice in those areas. We just increased, our service in, the North Hammond/Fighting area. An agreement with Calumet College, they're actually helping fund transit. And using the mobile fare data, massive increase in usage. It was already a successful service increase. We started that service last year. Doubling frequency, may have doubled ridership, which is what we're looking for. People basically south of Ridge in Westlake and south of 93rd in Eastlake in Central Lake County don't have that much of a transit option.
so
Increasing mobile choice, even if it's gas, even if it's diesel, will still decrease emissions in the transportation sector because you're bringing more choice to people who right now don't have it.
So you'd like to see if we could maybe model that as a maximized transit without the focus on electrification.
Right.
As a-
Electrifying our
another
buses
strategy.
is going to have an impact,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's also going to decrease our fuel costs, but more
We're still reducing that
service,
VMT.
more service is going to have that impact on VMT.
I think I went well over my time, so.
Thank you, Kathy. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on. Yes. 3.2, trail counters update. Mitch. This is likewise an informational meeting.
Informational, yes, thank you, Coach. Good morning.
Morning.
All right, trail counting. Wonderful. So I'm going to go over this program that we have been managing here at NERC for several years, get you up to speed on what we're doing here. First, why do we need trail counting? These people. You can look at that a little bit. I'll try to get the ones without profanity. Wasn't easy. But as you can see the general feeling of all these people. Bike paths are not used, trails are nowhere used. So when we have counters out there for cars, we kind of understand everyone uses them. There's still this myth out there that many people do not use our trails. So we want to kind of keep that in the back. Of course, you get this. You get commissioners saying the same thing and public officials saying the same thing. And we're actually seeing federal officials starting to say the same thing about trails and bike lanes and what have you, even in the spirit of woke. So we're trying to eliminate that idea because many people do use trails, and counting those users out there are very helpful for our purposes in expanding our robust trail network. So why do we have trail counting? Some basics: understanding usage patterns, okay? What time of day are people out there? What time of year are people out there? I mean, we can all kind of guess, and you'll see some statistics, but sometimes you can get surprised by that. Resource justification, especially when you do have a particular part of the trail that's getting used in other parts. Maybe that's where you afford some of your budget, maybe for some maintenance, maybe for some signage and what have you. Advocacy and funding, very helpful there. We're showing you all these people using this trail here. We want to see a trail in our community. Informed planning and management, that's where I come in. Okay, and management, of course, as well. Impact, economic impact assessment. So people don't really realize how much trails do bring into the local economies. They're very strong economic generators. you know, obviously there's other ones that are much more powerful than trails, but interestingly enough, trails do bring in quite a bit of economic impact. They do have a very positive effect on property values nearby where they are created. You know, every time a trail is located, you'll have adjacent properties that are going to be more valuable about within a few hundred feet of the trail itself. Of course, monitoring trail conditions as well. We want to make sure that people are out there using them more often, and if they're not, why not? And finally, we have assessing infrastructure needs, which is very important as well. Making sure that our trails are in good order and that people aren't out there destroying their bikes in the process. So, what I'm going to do is go through a couple of generations of trail counting that we have used and what we're dealing with now. So, TrafX was the very first type of counter that we bought here many years ago. These still exist in some parts of our region, primarily Cherville. And we're trying to transition out of there. It kind of was like a Boy Scout project to put these things together. You get the counter, then you have to go and buy the electrical box. You got to gut the electrical box, and then you got to use hot glue. And you know, you think you're in third grade. And you're putting this thing together, you got Velcro in there and everything else, and then you put the box in. So again, we deployed about 20 of these. I say user unfriendly. I mean, you'll see the new counters are Bluetooth activated. These weren't. You open up the box, you hope the lock is still there, that somebody didn't just twist it off and throw it away. And then you get in there, and then you have to take the shuttle, and then you have to take that shuttle back to your office, and then you have to put the, okay. And it was routinely vandalized. And unfortunately, we also had insects galore. Maybe not Mothra, but we had some pretty big bugs in there, okay? And I remember one particular count went from, yay, and then, there was like nothing left. I went out there and checked it. There was a dead bee right in the counter. It got in through the mesh and just died right there. I'm like, this is great, okay. So we wanted to move on from that, and we have. And they're called Eco Counter. And Eco Counters, a lot more modest, but far more stronger in solid state construction. You get a lot more variety with the counters themselves, discrete. You could also have a post constructed, as you can see off to the right. And what we did back in 2022 was put aside some federal funding for this. Just as a matter of dollars, those TrafX grade school projects, those are about $400 a piece. These are $3,000, okay? Bit of a jump. But we wanted to make sure that this was accommodated. Pretty much most regions throughout the country have employed these eco counters, and we purchased 30 of them with 80% federal match, and we had a lot of people in the room here have cooperated with me on the installation and the accounting of these devices, so I really appreciate that. We had 18 entities take part in this altogether. One of those 18 is a nonprofit, that was Shirley Hines. Bless them, they have 4 of them. And they wanted even more. So I'm like, hey, we can get this out there, sure. The counts do find people in both directions, so you have that advantage with this counter. And easy collection using Bluetooth, you just walk up to your cell phone, whoop, take it, go back. And it goes straight up into the cloud. You don't have to come back and report anything on your PC. It's a 3-year battery life, so it's a long-lasting lithium battery. Easy maintenance to make that work, so no issues there. And as you can see, we have a variety of these installed throughout the entire region. Again, if you're out there, you might find them. Again, they're trying to be discreet for obvious reasons, but they call it the Pyro Box. So that's what you see in our region. Most of our region entities wanted the Pyro Box. They're more flexible for location purposes. And we have about, at this year, currently over, well, nearly 1 million people have used all these trails that have been counted to date. And again, we have 30 out there. We haven't installed counters everywhere. We're trying to work with that, with the Eco Counter, with the TrafX, and try to make a much broader scope of it. And later on, you'll hear me talk about additional monies coming forward for more counters. It's been very popular. And the peak day, apparently June 15th, was a very good day here just a couple of months ago. So we had over 13,000 people out on the trails. So that's helpful. You're like, well, that's not nobody. So that's very good. And of course that breaks out accordingly. Now how it breaks out, here is a lovely pie chart that I'd like you to memorize. I've highlighted two because two of these are, as they say, statistically an anomaly in the case of Wicker Park and Valpo Fairgrounds. So if you actually take those out, you have a better distribution of how this pie chart would look. But as you can tell, Wicker Park and Valpo, they get the lion's share of the counts because, well, they're parks and people are walking around and probably triggering it 2 or 3 times while they're out there. And again, parks are popular destinations for exercise and what have you. Wicker Park has a 2.5-mile trail. I think Valpo is about a mile or 2, and very popular destinations. But you can see that's how it plays out, and that's how the distribution plays out throughout the region.
And this is just locations that have traffic counts?
Yeah, that have that,
That have the
eco counters.
okay.
Yeah, the TrafX is a whole nother analysis, and we'd have to figure out how to blend that. Deshaun has been hired just for that reason. No pressure on you, okay? No pressure. All right, so let's talk about a certain case study here in the city of Crown Point, or there in the city of Crown Point. They have one of the more robust areas for trail counting just north of the trailhead on Summit Street. And here's your annual comparison by week. This is showing you actually 3 years here. I'm not going to blind you. Does this have a laser on it? Okay. Do I have to put it on? Oh no. Computer? Okay, here we go. Oh, I turned it off. There you go. I guess
Star Trek reference? There you go. There you go.
I'll just leave that right here. This is too thin. I'm too old for this. So you're seeing the entire year, and you're seeing the entire year for the last 3 years since we installed it back in 23. And you can see the different years. Of course, the warmer months, you got more usage. But you do see usage there in the colder months on either end of that bell curve. And this is going from 0 to 52 weeks. So we want to show people and demonstrate that trails are used all year, that it's important to plow those trails all year, and I know many entities still do that. Keep in mind that once in a while, and we have had warm days in January and February, people do want to go out and bike, and if you don't plow your trails, that's all slush and ice for them to actually encounter. So it's very important to keep those clear. Talked about the weather. It gets into actual what kind of weather is out there. Now this is tracking the weather kind of since, I believe, what you're talking about, since June. Why? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out that. But it talks about where the weather is here. Was it raining? That's those blue spikes. And what's the actual usage during the rain, during the sun? I think people can figure that out as well. But it's neat that it can actually figure out weather. We have daily and hourly profiles. The daily profile is off on the left. You can see that we get more people on the weekends. Again, nothing surprising here. And then we have the hourly profiles, which are interesting too on the right, showing the best part of the use. You have early morning getting people out there about 6 or 8 a.m. And then we have another spike later in the day when people come home from work. So that's understandable as well. And of course, we have the higher peaks on the weekends. We also have hourly profiles as well. What are the most popular hours during the actual day on weekdays and weekends? Not much of a difference here, although you can see on the weekdays, you do see the spike in the afternoon for people coming home from work. Usually they're not working on the weekends, so it's a little smoother there, how that goes. For some reason, the green line you're seeing on the screen is 2023, and we've had a bit of a downturn in some of the usage throughout the region. We're not sure why we're seeing a downturn, but maybe that. Maybe construction, maybe the fact that the trail closed for a little bit in some particular areas of the region, but we're seeing that kind of across the board for all of the trails. And then you could go real crazy here. You got all sorts of different type of data sets that you can get out here and create reports on. And anyone who has a counter installed within their community are happy to talk to me or Deshaun. We can produce a report based on any of these and dealing with these different figures as well and give you that report and justify trails. Now, this slide was out of place, so I'm now going to go back to my pie chart. Here's the pie chart without those parks. See how it kind of levels out? Okay, so now we don't have Wicker Park or the fairgrounds in here, but here's how it looks generally with the regional trails. We have seen some pretty good growth in the Portage and Ameriplex just behind us over here by Bass Pro. Erie, Lackawanna, and Wicker Park North off on the right. That's a very popular spot as well in Crown Point, as I mentioned earlier. So doing well, getting the word out, helping our local officials and our advocates and our residents alike understand that people do use trails, okay? And they use them quite often. So, what are our future plans with these counters? Well, first of all, we hope to get some new Fed funding. I'm working with Charles on finding out if we can shake another $100 grand out and start matching more counters. I put a wish list out many moons ago when we first put this project out there, and we had quite a bit of people biting. I think we had probably over 100 counters asked for. We only could afford 30. So there's more to be done there. Additional countertops are available. If you take a look at that on the very left, that is what we call high end, right? I mean, that's probably about a $20,000 sign. And that counts people as they're going out there, and you can actually view that when you're on the trail itself. So people can see how many neighbors they have out there walking and biking with them. So we can make that available. It's just going to be more money for the local entity. Again, $3,000 is the box and post. We hope to create a dashboard. Grace, where are you? Go hide. There you are. Okay. Well, I'm not part of this. No, Grace is going to really help us out with a dashboard here, getting this out to the public. So anytime you go to our website, of course we'll work with Meredith on this as well, you can go and see the latest counts that we're getting here in Northwest Indiana. And we hope to deploy TrafX to refine counts as needed. And before I go, I will show you the actual where they are deployed right now. My slides are not in the best of orders right here, so I apologize. But we have all of them spread out from Whiting all the way out to LaPorte. So we've had some, actually we have a couple of them in Hammond, Wolf Lake area. As you can see, we have a good distribution of different counters region-wide. And again, for some reason, these slides are out of order, but here's back to Crown Point. Just bear with me. Back to Crown Point, and again, what you can get out of these as well is your daily average and your peak day, and of course, how you have your annual comparisons by month. So again, the whole bell curve thing coming in there, warmer weather, more trail use, no worries there. Apparently, May 26th was a very busy day on the trail. So is that Memorial Day? Yeah, so that makes sense. So that's it for me. I will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. David.
How are you funding them locally? What's the match you're looking for? If you're, I'm assuming you're talking to Charles to get federal funds.
20% match.
I mean, what sources are you looking at to fund those?
Well, we have federal money. We're just looking for local funds, local sources, wherever they find them from. Okay. Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know, general fund. I mean, we work with their parks departments on occasion as well, so there's maybe some equipment allowances that we can work with. We're not really sure. We don't ask. But like, they just commit to it. We're like, fine, you got, you're going to get your counters.
I mean,
I think that to answer your question, it's the local public agency that pays the local match. So NERC just provides the federal funds, and the municipality pays the local match. So it's a partnership.
Okay, I'm thinking, because I mean, I saw the glaring lack of counters on Oak Savannah in between Gary and, basically between Griffith and Hobart.
Yep.
The massive amount of trails in Marquette Park between Lake Street and County Line. And do you have anything on the Marquette Trail?
We have one.
Where's that?
Marquette
Is that
Greenway.
it?
Marquette Greenway have two of them.
No, I'm talking about the Marquette Trail in the National Park Service.
No.
Okay.
But it's going under construction right now. So
Right.
So
No, I see it. I mean, I
As
got
soon-
a massive amount of dirt by my house.
yeah, that's one we're going to target a TrafX counter, just put it out there and start getting it. And hopefully the city will come, or the national park. Again, we put out this wish list, and the city of Gary didn't bite at the time. So you put the fish out there, you hope it bites. They didn't bite. So, but the new administration, we'll see what happens.
Next time I talk to Chris, I'll try to get it.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Kate.
Hi, nice job, pretty cool.
Thank you.
So in your perfect world,
Yes.
how many more counters would you want?
Well, I mean, to adequately, again, one trail, you could probably have several counters because there's different types of environments where the trail goes through. So if I had my druthers, we'd have 100 or more in this region, if not even more than that. And we're talking about not only regional trails, but also larger parks as well, and national park and state park. The state park would love to have trail counters for all their trails through their environment. They just couldn't afford it at this time. They said, come back to us. So we'd love to see how many people are using Cal Bogs, how many people are out there. Which number trail, you have 10 trails in the state park, right? So how many of those are, that'd be great to find out which ones get. So that's my druthers, yeah.
Okay, another question, can private sector make local match?
I don't see why, well, we do allow nonprofits. And again, that comes down, this is where Charles, I'm looking at, and what we can do regarding public-private and how private they have to be. I mean, nonprofits that's not a problem. We've done that before, and Shirley Hines is a nonprofit. But as for private, again, that's something we'd have to explore and see if it's even.
And I have not, obviously not talked to anybody in the private sector, so I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that I've got something up my sleeve.
No, it's a good question. It really
But,
is.
I mean, you never know who's looking for a project. So,
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Ask Chris.
Well, Mitch, I was thinking along the same lines, your Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, those areas that you're asking for densification in Gary, the not-for-profits may be able to step forward.
Sure.
It'd be a $600 share for a
$600 per unit.
Yeah. And I also saw nothing down along the Veterans Trail out of Hebron, which is another, maybe an opportunity for the not-for-profits. And there's a number of them.
We've seen, yeah, and again, if we have a nonprofit, we can work with that. They can install these on public properties. We've seen that in Crown Point and other areas before, some partnerships. So that is a good idea. Just got to get the word out. We want to give our LPAs first dibs, as you would imagine, at these funds. But if we had more to be available, we can make things work. Charles, please jump in.
Since you're dragging me into this.
You're not kicking and screaming, so that's good.
So, no, what we normally ask that the communities give in 20%. Now, I guess it would be up to the communities to go out to their nonprofits in their community and ask for if they would like to share in that.
Yeah.
So we haven't suggested this. Maybe we need to, but I think as a general rule, we just ask the LPA to fund the 20%, and how they come up with that 20%, we don't really care, as long as they're doing it. I'm hoping they do it somewhat ethically.
Make sure there are envelopes and unmarked bills.
Manila envelopes is not money, okay?
Let's get back on track.
Anyway.
Putting as long as the LPA is sponsoring, they're gonna work with the private sector, that's fine. Yes, Amen.
I'm just questioning, don't you get funding for the life map from some private, like Franklin County?
Yeah, we do get, that's a good good point. We do get a lot of private sector assistance with the bike map. A lot of retail stores are part of that, NIPSCO's part of that. Yeah, so that might be a good guide right there, Kate. Right
So
there.
NIPSCO, through their environmental grants that they give each year is involved, or in some other capacity?
Rick just throws us money. Just says, here's your $1,000 for 4 years. I don't know where he gets it, but they're happy to sponsor, and we have other entities, again, mostly retail entities.
I'll have coffee.
Please, strong coffee. Yes,
Hey,
sir.
just want to commend you, great data.
Oh,
Yeah, thank
Being
you.
able to back it up, so that's good job.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
If there are no other comments or questions for Mitch, I don't see any. Let's move on to road safety audit.
Thank you, Mitch.
Mr. Bradsky's back. Good job, Mitch.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, again.
Good morning.
So we have started, this is our second phase of the road safety audit this year. 2025 is our second phase. We do have a 2-year contract with our consultants to give us road safety audits. We did get 9 LPAs that submitted locations that they would like road safety audits at. And of that 9, are broken down to, we had 11 intersections and 3 corridors. Since this isn't really designed for a corridor, we kind of looked at the intersections on the corridor. And then we took those, and the list is on page 7 in the pamphlet, if you want to look at it. We did talk with NDOT and did get some comments from them, especially on the state roads. Don't want to duplicate what they've already done, obviously. So we started this a couple weeks ago. We do have weekly meetings now with our consultant, Cordino. And we do hope to be out with doing field checks sometime before month's end. So we will be contacting with you folks or the city engineer, as well as the emergency chiefs, whether that's the police or the fire, to meet us out there for a field check and discuss what's going on. We also need to get traffic counts, so our consultant will get traffic counts. That's one of the things that we didn't realize that the LPAs don't normally have access to, is getting traffic counts. But just to give everybody an idea of the timeline and where we're at, there are, like I said, the ones that we did talk with NDOT, and NDOT either had already something planned at those intersections or had recently done work. In most cases, the traffic counts would still be skewed. So we're working with them, or looking at postponing those, or looking at other sources.
Any questions for Charles?
Of course, the unincorporated areas, as you know, how can we get those areas?
I would say talk with the county.
Okay.
And have the counties submit it, and submit the county, or have the county submit it, or submit it on behalf of the county.
Are any of the prior recommendations still on the back burner from, we were talking 2029 for some of those locations?
What's that?
Well, I can talk to you separately.
Yeah, I think
But
the only
for
one
other-
that was, we have one that was on the back burner from last year, and we included it in this year. So we'll be reaching out to all of the communities.
Okay.
And that submitted locations, and talking with them about the next steps. And if you have any, I know, George, you and I, we've talked about some locations.
Yes.
So I would get with the county,
Okay.
because they're your LPA. And then I would say submit something next year.
Okay.
If I could just add to that, in the last round, we did 2 road safety audits in unincorporated LaPorte County. And in this round, it's likely that we'll do a road safety audit in unincorporated Lake County at 117th and Parish. That was actually the worst intersection that was submitted in terms of frequency and intensity of crashes.
Of course, with the likelihood of the transformational roadway coming through our township, that's going to create issues that are already a problem that we need to talk about. So I'll discuss it with the county.
Okay. That'd be good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
George.
appreciate your help too.
Anytime.
Any other questions? Okay.
See, we don't have any programming, so we can move on to reports from Pine Partners. The only one here today I see is Drive Clean Indiana.
Good morning, everyone. Have a little bit of an interactive update here. So bear with me for a second as I connect. Boom, boom. Okay, so just rehashing this, the Go EVIN funding awards, the state's electric vehicle charging station program did make awards back on August 4th. The contracts are still forthcoming from the state, but what it comes out to is about $3.3 million for 18 charging station projects for DC fast charging stations. So that's gonna be like 10-20 minutes charging. And then level 2 projects were gonna be longer dwell times, just like the charging station that you see out here. But these are really good projects with some really good locations and great partners. So that is forthcoming here. Just going over the DieselWise funding, the city of Whiting was awarded a grant application for a propane garbage truck. They're gonna be buying 2 more propane garbage trucks and a street sweeper. And this is a great project because it's fueled by renewable propane that's sourced from BP. So it's all in all fuels being produced in Whiting, it's being used in Whiting, so it's great. Tesla wall charger donations. We still have some Tesla universal wall chargers that are available and pedestals. If your municipality is interested in these, we would be able to donate these. And these are very simple, easy to use, and are 48 amp charging stations. So please let me know. Additionally, we're gonna have some Indiana clean diesel funding. It's gonna be between $10 and $11 million available for class 4 through 8 gross vehicle weight rating and off-road diesel replacements. And this should be announced within the month. Just some project updates, the Lake and Porter County ZEV project. First 3 electric vehicles were delivered in July to the city of Lake Station. Once again, this is $33,280 per EV purchase, and then up to $16,000 for a public level 2 charging project. The Indiana National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which is about $100 million, was put on hold starting in January. However, it should be starting back up here in the next couple of months, so more to update on that. The Midwest ZEV program. This is the point in the presentation where everyone takes out their phone to scan QR codes and take this survey willingly. Good news, bad news, however you want to respond, please feel free to fill it out. This is infrastructure related to zero emission medium duty and heavy duty trucks related to hydrogen and electric. So this is focused on the I-80 corridor across our great state. And this is a survey that was composed by Purdue University to help locate the needs and willing parties for in our area as far as where this infrastructure needs to be. And I do have handouts on the front table as you enter the building. Just some more upcoming events. We're gonna have the National Drive Electric Week, the month, they changed to a month now. It's gonna be here at NERC September 18th. It's starting at 10 a.m. We have a lot of electric vehicles on display and that you can even drive. So feel free to scan this QR code and get registered. But we have all types of EVs from both public and private, well represented here. And then we're gonna be doing the Crossroads Clean Energy and Transportation Forum at 9 a.m. at Purdue Technology Park in Maryville on October 29th. This is a new endeavor that we're focusing on having some clarity as it results to the different regulations and different updates from the transportation side of things. So this is gonna be a statewide group that we're gonna be meeting on a monthly basis, and the first one's gonna be at the end of October. The National Truck Equipment Association Work Truck Week, we're gonna be having our stakeholder breakfast down in Indianapolis on March 11th. I will have free tickets available for attendees that would want to attend one of the world's largest work truck events. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Any questions about what we talked about here? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carl.
Ryan.
I'd be called Russ.
Ryan, I'm sorry. I know his dad. I'm becoming my dad. God help us. Anyway, we have other business staff announcements. We have acceptance of committee appointments, but we don't have that. That's not listed. We have staff announcements.
Thank you. Yes, I have 3 staff announcements. First, I'm going to just inform the group that we're rescheduling our November meeting to December. So we were scheduled to meet on November 4th, which would be the first Tuesday of November. However, because the commission meeting normally takes place in early December, so we have a November meeting and then no December meeting. This year, the commission meeting is taking place in its normal monthly schedule in December, and there will be no November commission meeting. So in order to kind of keep our continuity of committees to the commissions, we're rescheduling our November meeting from November 4th to December 2nd. So that'll give the group a little bit longer time to collect those project changes for the TIP amendment and any administrative modifications. So mark that on your calendar. That's not the next meeting. We still have a meeting in October, but it's the one following that. Secondly, I want to introduce to the group, he was referenced during Mitch's presentation, our newest employee, Ishan Parek. Ishan is a graduate of Valparaiso University with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science, as well as a recent graduate of Illinois Institute of Technology with a Master of Science in Sustainability, Analytics, and Management. And he has been hired as our new Transportation Technical Assistant. So what he will be doing primarily during the warm months is going out and conducting traffic counts as part of our contract with the Indiana Department of Transportation to count traffic for the Highway Performance Management System throughout Lake Porter and LaPorte counties. And then because he has a very strong background in GIS and data analysis, during the period of time during the year when you can't do traffic counting, he'll be working in the office, working on various mapping and performance measurement and other data products for the agency. So welcome aboard, Ishan. You can sit down. We're happy to have him here. He's he's been a great addition so far. He started about, I think, 4 weeks ago, and he's already been out in the field doing traffic counting. I will say, just on the subject of traffic counting in general, we have sort of an internal schedule that we're working with because we have an obligation to count certain stations for INDOT. But we do have some flexibility in that schedule. So if there are high priority locations for you as a community, say you're doing a corridor plan or something like that, and you need some fresh traffic counts, let us know, and we can try to work those into the schedule more quickly than we otherwise would have. Okay, and then the last announcement, and David, you can speak to this as well, but we're partnering with Health by Design, which is a nonprofit group out of Indianapolis, to conduct a Indiana Road to Zero Academy workshop. This will take place on September 26th at IUN. It's an all-day workshop from 9 to 4. And this is it's kind of a, there's some informative presentations that'll be delivered by the Health by Design staff on the subject of Vision Zero, which is the idea of sort of increasing the safety of the transportation network such that there are 0 fatalities and incapacitating injuries. So it'll be some informative sessions, and then there will be an actual kind of on-the-ground workshop where we'll walk a corridor and look at a few different intersections nearby IUN, and kind of conduct a mini road safety audit. And the idea is that this is something that you can, if you're already a practitioner, you can kind of refresh your understanding of Vision Zero. But if you have other interested people in your community, be they elected or appointed officials, or even community safety advocates, everyone can participate in this workshop and kind of get a sense of how to look at your community with a little bit more of an educated eye to what you could do to improve safety on your roadway network.
David?
I was just gonna add that, as we talked about in the past, I brought it up before, Indianapolis does have a Road to Zero program. They've adopted, the goal of, Vision Zero. And again, Indianapolis does not need to be the only vanguard in the state when it comes to, big stretch goals like this. Help by Design has done at least one Road to Zero Academy outside of Indianapolis, and this has been their charge of partnering with the state on this. So I wanted to make sure that they did not forget, the second largest metro area in the state, Northwest Indiana, when it comes to giving us these opportunities. So I've worked with the staff to find a location that was centrally located, that had a diverse amount of corridors. You're near the freeway, you're right there on State Road 53, you've got 35th Avenue right there. There's transit, so you can see the interaction between the different modes of travel in that area. So please, if you have any questions, come to me. I'm the one that proposed this to Help by Design to come to Northwest Indiana. I'm on the board there, so I had a little bit of weight when it came to that. I just want to make sure that Northwest Indiana has the opportunities that Central Indiana also has.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'll just add that this is a free workshop, but registration is required because they're capped at, I think, 40-something participants. So, yeah, strongly encourage everyone, if they have the time, to come out to this workshop.
Upcoming NERC meetings. NERC Executive Board will be September 18th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in this room. Economy and Place Committee will meet October 8th at 10 a.m. That's George Tomel's committee. And the next Transportation Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. 10 a.m. in these offices. And Kathy?
Before the meeting, some people had asked me about an IDEM meeting that's coming up. So the Department of Environmental Management is updating the state solid waste recycling plan that it's about 20 years old. It's now rebranded as the Materials Management Plan. But they're having a public open house Thursday, September 11th at Valparaiso Public Library from 3 to 7 p.m. So I don't know if you guys know the rate, but if there's someone in your community that worries about recycling, solid waste, things like that, they might wanna come over since they're actually coming up here.
Thank you. Regardless, we'll make the announcements, so everybody's invited to come. If there's nothing else good for the order, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's 11.